Have you ever felt like you're down to your last bit of hope, your last dollar, your last ounce of strength? You look at what you have, and it just doesn't seem like enough to get you through. If that's you, I want to share a story that might just change your perspective. It's a powerful account from the Bible, found in 1 Kings chapter 17, about a prophet named Elijah and a widow who was on the brink of despair. Imagine this: the land is gripped by a terrible drought. Not a drop of rain has fallen for a long, long time. The ground is cracked and dry, crops have failed, and a devastating famine has spread everywhere. People are starving, and the future looks incredibly bleak. It's in this desperate setting that God speaks to his prophet, Elijah. He tells him to go to a town called Zarephath, where a widow will provide for him. Now, you might think God would send Elijah to a wealthy family, someone with a stocked pantry. But no, God's ways are often not our ways. When Elijah arrives at the city gate, he sees a woman gathering sticks. He asks her for a little water and a piece of bread. Her reply is heartbreaking. She tells him, "As surely as the Lord your God lives, I do not have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug." She explains her plan. She's gathering those few sticks to cook one final meal for herself and her son. After they eat it, they expect to die. This is the very definition of rock bottom. She has nothing left to give, nothing left to hope for. But then Elijah says something that must have sounded completely absurd. He tells her not to be afraid. He asks her to go home and make a small loaf of bread for him first, and then make something for herself and her son. Can you imagine her shock? This stranger is asking her to give away the very last of her food. But Elijah's request comes with a divine promise. He says, "For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Here is the turning point of the story. The widow is faced with a critical choice: trust her fear and her circumstances, or trust the promise of God spoken through a stranger. Her fear was logical. Her resources were visibly dwindling. But faith called her to look beyond what she could see. She chose faith. She went home and did exactly as Elijah had told her. She took her last bit of flour and oil and made a small piece of bread for the prophet. And then a miracle unfolded, not as a one-time spectacular event, but as a quiet, daily provision. Every single day, when she went to the jar, there was flour. Every time she tipped the jug, there was oil. The Bible says that she, her son, and Elijah had food every day. The jar of flour was never empty, and the jug of oil never ran dry, just as the Lord had promised. God didn't give her a warehouse full of flour overnight. He gave her exactly what she needed for each day, teaching her to rely on Him continually. This story is packed with incredible lessons for us today. First, it shows us that faith is about trusting God even when we have very little. True faith isn't about having a lot, it's about what we do with the little we have. The widow's small act of obedience, born out of a flicker of faith, unlocked God's abundant provision. She gave what she had, and God multiplied it beyond her wildest dreams. It also reminds us that God sees the humble, the forgotten, and the ones who feel they have nothing left to offer. He didn't choose the richest person in the land. He chose a poor foreign widow on the verge of starvation to display his power and faithfulness. It shows his heart for those whose society might overlook. Your situation is never too small or too insignificant for God to notice and to work in. And finally, this story is a beautiful illustration of the verse from Psalm 25:3, which says, "No one who hopes in you will ever be put to shame." The widow put her hope in the Lord, and she was not disappointed. Her trust was honored with a miracle that sustained her through the darkest of times. So, whatever you're facing today, whether it feels like you're down to your last handful of flour, remember the widow of Zarephath. Your act of faith, no matter how small it seems, can open the door for God's provision in your life. Trust Him with what you have and watch how He can sustain and multiply it. He is faithful. Thanks for watching today. If this story encouraged you, please give this video a like and consider subscribing for more content that builds up your faith. We'll see you in the next one.